Hello.
Yeah. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started at the top of the hour, but we wanted to let people start to flow in. Thanks for joining us this morning. Wow, happy to see so many happy faces piling in already for our webinar this morning. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Getting started in about 2 minutes. All right, good morning, everyone. We'll be getting started with the actual program at 10, but I want to get us rolling here with some intros. So welcome to our Learn Libby from the Experts webinar this morning, where we'll be covering 2 different topics via demo, both getting started and tips and tricks with the Libby app. Let's see. I wanted to just kind of take a moment to introduce ourselves here. So let me roll in. We at 10 o'clock will be starting our Getting Started session. And in this presentation, we'll be covering the Libby basics that you need to know to use the Libby app every day. Now, as an intro and welcome, my name is Joe, and I'm a digital book specialist here at Overdrive. When me and my teammate here, Marissa, aren't doing these wonderful virtual webinars for your libraries, we're usually on the road with our digital bookmobile, where we get to travel across the US and Canada and introduce people just like yourselves here today virtually to Libby, only we get to do that with a brightly colored truck that's kind of like a digital petting zoo, all tricked out with different fun things and features. But this morning, Marissa and I are going to take you through getting started with the Libby app in this part of our demo. Now, before we dive into that, I have a few housekeeping items I'd just like to go over. We are recording our sessions this morning. You will receive this recording in an email tomorrow morning from Zoom. It'll be a link to the recorded video, and tomorrow will be the earliest you can access that. Now, I point this out because we realize that everyone learns at a different pace, so Marissa and I recommend that you watch as we go through this demo and wait to try Libby until after we wrap up our session today. So just kind of follow along as we go through the different points, make any notes, mark anything down that you want to see later and ask us questions, and know that you can review the entire recording as soon as tomorrow. Now, I mentioned questions in that. You can ask Marissa and I questions throughout the entire webinar using the Q&A feature in your Zoom meeting controls. So if you tap on that Q&A box, you can type in your question, leave that box open so you can see the answers that we provide as those pop up. If one of us is talking or presenting, the other will be answering questions. So don't worry, we didn't forget about you. This is your only way to reach out to us, as the chat and raise hand features are disabled for this webinar. We do this so all of the questions go into one place so everyone can see what is asked and those answers that we provided, and so that way they can be included in that recording. Additionally, I'll be sending out some instructions here in just a moment in case you can't see our entire screens when we connect our iPads. So sometimes Zoom cuts off a part of the display. So there will be some step-by-step instructions to adjust that. The last thing I want to mention while we're on this housekeeping slide is that If you need to step away from the webinar at any point, that is totally fine since we are recording and you can review that at kind of your comfort as soon as tomorrow. If you leave early and leave the meeting, there is a survey that pops up in your Zoom meeting controls. So or not in your Zoom meeting controls, I'm sorry, there will be a survey that pops up in your internet browser. If you can take a moment to fill that out, Marissa and I would appreciate any and all feedback you can provide. It's not so much about the Libby app, it's just about our presentation here. And we love to know the improvements we can make or what we're doing well so we can just kind of continue growing this presentation going forward. So with all of that out of the way, and hopefully enough stalling time to allow people to keep filtering through, I can get started here. So I'm going to start us off this morning by taking you through the process of downloading the app onto your device and getting signed into the Libby app for the very first time. Then I'll hand it over to Marissa and she will take us through, like I mentioned at the top, those Libby basics, the things you absolutely need to know to use the Libby app in your day-to-day life. Now, Marissa and I are both using iPads this morning. The Libby app is available on Apple, Android, and in your computer browser at libbyapp.com. So whether you're using an iPhone or an iPad or a Samsung tablet or a Google smartphone, anything like that, you can go to your app store and download Libby. And you can also go to, like I said, libbyapp.com and use Libby in a browser. And no matter which one of those options you're using, everything will look exactly the same as you're seeing on our screen. So let's get started here now that I'm all connected. For my Apple users, we'll be going to our blue App Store icon. If you're on an Android device, you'll be going to the Google Play Store. It's a multicolored play button or multicolored triangle. Like I mentioned, we just need to go wherever we would typically download our apps from. So I'm going to come down to the bottom and tap on search. I know I'm looking for Libby, so I'm going to type in Libby and then just tap on search. And there we go. When we do that, Libby is the first result that pops up that isn't an ad. We can see right here, Libby by Overdrive, that maroon app icon with Libby reading her book. Now you'll notice on my screen it says open. It's because I already have the Libby app downloaded on my device, but on yours it will say get or install. Get if you're on Apple, install if you're on Android. Tap get or install to download this free app and follow your device's on-screen instructions. You may need to sign in to your account, anything like that. But once the app's all downloaded, we'll leave our app store and find that freshly downloaded Libby app on our home screen. So now we're going to sign in for the first time. The very first time you open up the Libby app, either for your first download and setup, or if you're adding Libby to a new device, she'll have a few questions to help you find your library and add your card. So the first question, of course, is do you have a library card? I'm going to say yes. And now from here, there are two items I want to talk about, and this is just so we can locate our library. I wanted to mention, because it is important, if you have multiple devices and you want to set up Libby, when you're using Libby on your second device after the first setup, you would want to use this copy from my other device button to make any future setups quicker. You don't have to search and add a bunch of things. You can save yourself some time and some steps. So that's what this button is for. I recommend it if you're using more than one device later. But for now, let's get started and find our first library. I'll search for a library. And this way I can search by the name of my library, the city I live in, or my zip code. Now let me look at my notes here. Marissa and I are both from Cleveland. So while we're not too far from y'all in PA, I don't know the zip off the top of my head. There we go. So here we go, there's my zip code. Now I can see right here, this may be the branch of the library I belong to. I can see the name, the address, the city and state. But what I want to point out and explain is this name up top, Delaware County Library System. This is the name of your digital collection. Basically, that is the pool of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines that you have access to with your library card. So Marissa and I will mention the digital collection a lot, since that is the entire group of libraries or the entire group of materials that your libraries have access to. So I know this is the right digital collection, and I know this is the address my card is from. So I'll tap on this box. And there we go. We're not done yet. We still need to add in our library card. Libby's prompting us to do that right here. So I'm just going to tap on Enter Library Account Details. And now all I need to do is type in my library card number. So just use those numbers on your card, no dashes or spaces. There we go. And once those numbers are in, tap on Sign In. And as long as oh, well, it looks like I have some fines on this card. So if you see any messages like that, if you have difficulties, just reach out to your library. They'll be able to resolve that for you. So if you think you entered it incorrectly, you could tap on Try Again. But if your card works well, you'll just tap Sign In and it will refresh. But that's okay, because now Marissa is going to take you through the rest of kind of the basics process. You'll see the page refreshes, and then you'll have access to your library's complete collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So I see Marissa's typing in an answer right now. And so she'll connect in just a minute. But Marissa will be connecting her iPad and taking us through the process of searching for titles, borrowing and browsing, adjusting your appearance settings within an ebook, setting up your notification preferences. I've said it a few times, but those basics, everything you need to know to access and have a fruitful venture into the Libby app. Marissa's using a demo library from Overdrive this morning, so you'll see a different logo at the top of her screen. But just like Libby works the same regardless of the system you're using, she looks the same as well regardless of the library you're in. So it looks like Marissa's all connected, so I'll hand it off to her. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
All right, thank you, Joe, and good morning, everyone. Now that Joe has walked you through the download and almost entirely the way through the sign-in process, I'm going to go ahead and talk about all of those basic features as he mentioned. So we're not going to get into anything too complicated in this session here today. We'll get into the nitty-gritty stuff later in our deep dive session. This is just going to be those basics. And so just a reminder, again, this is generally where people have trouble seeing the full screen. So Joe's going to chat out those instructions one more time. If you cannot see the bottom navigation bar where I have 5 icons, I have a magnifying glass, a library card, the Libby icon, the shelf, as well as the clock. If you cannot see those, then follow those instructions that Joe just chat out, and that will fix the issue for you. So we're going to start down here in the navigation bar today. I will talk about all of these icons throughout the presentation, but we're going to start to the left of the Libby icon. So you can see that Libby icon in the very center of the navigation bar. If we go just to the left there, you'll see the library card. That is the tab that we're going to start on, or the icon we're going to start on. And this is going to be where you go to browse your library's entire collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So here on the library card, up at the top of the screen, that's where you'll see some filters to begin browsing your library's digital collection. This is often where I start browsing my library's digital collection because it's an easy way to see books that were just added or available now if you don't want to wait on a wait list. You could even tap on subjects and then choose a subject like mystery or historical fiction so that you can go and find a book that you like in the subject that you like most. So nice way to start browsing for titles up here using those filters. Now, staying on that library card icon there, as we scroll down, this is where you'll start to see some catalog guides. These are going to always vary from library to library. So the library likes to choose what they're showing off here in these catalog guides. Yours are likely going to look much different than mine. And it's just another way that the library can curate content so that you can find books easier. As I scroll down even farther on this library card tab here, that's where you're going to start to see curated collections that your library puts together for you. So this is going to be like if you were to walk into the physical library and it's summer, they might be displaying beach reads. In the winter, cozy mysteries. For all the history months, they might have some certain displays for each history month. So these are going to change all the time. The library is always wanting to show us something fresh and new and really catch our interest with a great book on display. So again, that library card icon down in the navigation bar, that's where you're going to go when you don't know exactly what you're looking for. You just want to browse around the library and see what they have available for you to borrow or place on hold. Now, if you do know exactly what you're looking for, that's when you're going to go over to the magnifying glass in that navigation bar instead. So I'm going to tap on this magnifying glass here. And this is where you can type in a specific title, author, or keyword or series name, magazine name. So you know exactly what you're looking for. I'm going to type in a title. So Beach Read is the book that I'm going to look for. I can tap on any of these search suggestions that Libby is giving me. But what I like to do is tap on the search button in the keyboard of my device. That way it's capturing everything that the Libby search would give me. So you can see I'm searching for Beach Read, and it's coming up with 355 books and 42 audiobooks. Now, as we're on this page, I want to point out a few different things. The first is going to be how you can tell the difference between an ebook and an audiobook visually. So when you're searching for a book, you have to borrow it in the format that you would like. So you'll have to decipher what's ebooks and what's audiobooks. Audiobooks are always going to have a square jacket cover. And then right underneath that jacket cover, you'll see a pair of headphones and then the duration of the audiobook as well. An ebook, on the other hand, is going to have a rectangular jacket cover. There aren't any icons underneath or the duration underneath. So it's just that simple rectangular icon versus the square icon with the headphones underneath. So that is how you can decide if you're going to borrow the ebook or the audiobook there. Another thing I want to point out here is how you can tell the difference between a book that's available to borrow right now and books that you might have to join a waiting list for. So the ebook version here, you can see it says borrow right next to that jacket cover. That means it's available now. You can borrow it straight away and begin reading. The audiobook, on the other hand, says place hold. That means there's currently a waiting list. There is someone reading every single copy that the library owns. And so you'll have to join that waiting list to get in line. Really, really simple process. All we have to do is tap on place hold. This will bring us to the confirmation page here. And you can see down at the bottom of the confirmation page, it does tell us approximately how long it will take for the title to make our way to us. And then we can tap on that maroon button there to confirm that we want to place that hold. This is when Libby's going to give us a few different options for what to do next. I'm going to go ahead and say keep browsing. And that's going to take us right back to the same search that we were making. So you can see after I hit keep browsing, if I scroll up, we're still looking for Beach Read. And now that audiobook version is on my hold shelf. Let's go ahead and walk through the borrowing process now. So I could tap on borrow right next to the jacket cover, but if you don't know what a book is about yet, just go ahead and tap on the jacket cover itself, and that's going to take you to the details page. So you'll get to find out what that book is about. And if you decide that's the book you want to dive into, you can go ahead and tap on borrow here on this page. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on borrow. This brings us to the borrowing confirmation page. You'll see up at the top here, we are borrowing this book for 14 days. That is the default lending period at your library, and titles do automatically return on their due date, so you never have to worry about late fees. Now I'm going to go ahead and confirm that I want to borrow this book by tapping that maroon button that says borrow. And this is when Libby starts to download the title for offline use. So a really great feature of Libby is that while you're on Wi-Fi, she will automatically download any title for offline use. All you have to do is wait for that check mark there in the circle. That's when you know you can take your tablet or phone or tablet or phone up into a plane on airplane mode. You can take it out to the beach and it's still going to work just fine. Now let's go ahead and tap open book. This is going to give us the option to read in the Libby app or send the title to a Kindle device. So if you have a Kindle at home that you like to read on, there is not a Libby app available to download on your Kindle. However, you can download Libby on your smartphone or tablet or use that computer at libbyapp.com. And then this feature here is going to deliver it to your Kindle so that you can read your ebook there. It's a very, very simple process. I don't go through it here in this presentation because it requires me to sign into my Amazon account. But all you have to do is tap on this button, sign into your Amazon account, and there will be a big gold button you can't miss that says Get Library Book. And after you tap that, Amazon's going to deliver it to the Kindle that's attached to your Amazon account. So really easy process there. I'm going to go ahead and show you a few of the key features in the Libby app. So I'm going to open this book in Libby here. Now, up at the top and the bottom of the screen, you'll have some menu bars. To make those disappear and drop out of the way, all you have to do is tap on the center of the screen. If you tap on the center of the screen while they're gone, that's going to make them reappear. This bottom menu is going to show you your reading progress. So you can see right now we're on page 1 of 524. Now I'm going to tap on the center of the screen again and make those drop away so we can start reading our book. And then to page forward, all we have to do is tap or swipe on the right side of the screen there, and that's going to move us forward. Now I'm going to go quick and get to a big chunk of text. There we go. So one of the really great things about Libby is that you can customize your reading appearance to meet your needs. So every book can be a large print book. That's a sentence Joe and I say a lot. We love that feature about Libby. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. First, we're going to tap in the center of the screen. That's going to make those menus reappear. And then up in the right-hand corner, you'll see that A icon. That A stands for appearance. So that is what we're going to go ahead and tap on. And that's going to bring up our appearance menu. So within your appearance, you can change a few different things. The first is going to be the text scale. So you can use this slider here to increase or decrease the font size. Next, we have lighting. I'm currently in bright mode. That is Libby's default, but we also have sepia and this dark mode. If you want to read at night and want something a little bit easier on your eyes, that is an option for you as well. The last thing we have down in this menu is book design. This is our fancy way of saying font. So these are the different fonts that you can put Libby into. I always like to point out the open dyslexic font here because it might help some users with dyslexia to read. Now, I am going to change these all back to my default here for my next presentation. And that's because these settings are sticky. And what I mean by sticky settings is a little bit bigger. There we go. Now it's not listening to me. What I mean by sticky settings is you're only going to have to make these settings and customizations one time. And then moving forward, Libby is going to deliver ebooks to you on that device with those settings in place. So you're not going to have to change them every single time you borrow a book. They're just going to automatically deliver to you that way. I'm going to go ahead and tap on hide here. And I'm going to leave this ebook and then pop into an audiobook. So I'm going to tap on back up in the left-hand corner here. Remember, if you don't have those menus, all you have to do is tap in the center of the screen, and that's what makes them drop out of the way and then reappear. So I'm going to tap on back. And this is going to take us to the shelf. So I told you we were going to talk about all those icons down at the bottom, and this is where we reorient you. So let's head back down to the navigation bar. First, I want to point out this now reading bar. This now reading bar is Libby's way of giving you easy access to the very last book that you had open in the app. So it will pop up with the last book you had open. Just if you tap on it, it will open your book back up. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this for now so that we can talk about that navigation bar there. So if you remember, we started this presentation to the left of the Libby icon. So we tapped on the library card, and that's where we could browse the entire collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So we didn't know exactly what we were looking for. We were just looking around to see if we could find a book to borrow. Now, then we went to the magnifying glass. That's where we searched for something specific. So that magnifying glass is where you're going to type in a title, author, or series name. We are now to the right of the Libby icon. So we're actually now on this stack of books here. This is our shelf. So on your shelf is going to be all of your loans and holds. They all live in a single place, and you will be able to access them here. So up at the top, you can tap on these filters to just look exclusively at your loans or your holds. But here on the main page, it will have a mixture. Up here, you can see this is the book that I borrowed with you just earlier in the presentation. And then as I scroll down, I have an audiobook that I borrowed a few weeks ago. So I'm going to go ahead and open this audiobook here in the Libby app. Up at the top of the audiobook player, you'll see your reading progress. So I'm 3% of the way through this audiobook here, 24 minutes in with 14 hours left to go. Down at the bottom here is where you're going to find your player. You can tap on play to begin playing the audiobook. Now I can hear her on my side. You can't hear her on your end, so you can hear me instead, but she is playing. One thing that we talk about here in the audiobooks is that the pause button is going to be how you're going to stop your audiobook. So Libby is designed to play audiobooks in the background of your phone. That means you can start playing your audiobook and minimize the app or put your phone to sleep, the screen to sleep, and the audiobook will continue playing. If you don't press pause, Libby is going to continue playing that audiobook. So when you're done listening, make sure you tap on pause, and then that's when you can close the app and be on your way, and you're not going to have to go and find your place again. All right, I'm going to come back up to the top here and tap on back, just like we did in that ebook, to go back to our shelf. And now I'm going to come down back to the bottom and reorient you again. So you can see we have a new now reading bar. It says The Four Winds, because remember, this is easy access to the last book that we had open in the Libby app. So we opened that audiobook. That's why it changed there. I'm going to dismiss it again. So our shelf is where all those holds and loans will be, the books that we currently have on hold and we currently have on loan to us that we're reading. Right next door on this clock, that's your activity timeline. So if you tap on this, this is going to be your history. So all of your past loans, past holds, renews, and returns. So your shelf is current, and your timeline is history. Now we're going to finish the presentation in the very center. You can see that Libby icon right there in the very, very center of the navigation bar. You can think of that Libby menu as your app settings. So this is where we're going to go to switch between libraries and some other things. And I'm going to show you how to do that. First, I want to point out this little bubble here. So Libby has a little red bubble on her head right now with 2 inside, letting me know I have 2 notifications waiting for me. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that Libby menu, and you can see it popped out of the right side of the screen. Up at the top here are my notifications. So she let me know I have 2. The first is that my hold lapsed. I'm going to dismiss this out of the way by swiping it to the left. And I also have a loan due soon. So I'm going to dismiss that one as well. I'm going to swipe it to the left. And now you can see I have a button that says Manage Notifications. So I'm going to talk about notifications here. Know that when you first place a hold, you're going to be prompted to manage your notifications automatically. So you're not going to have to come here to find this button. Libby's going to bring that button to you, but I'm going to go ahead and jump into this menu here so I can show you what that's going to look like. So notifications are how you can be alerted about important events in the Libby app. There are 3 ways to be notified. These are up at the top here. You can ignore a notification. You can also set a menu badge. That's an in-app notification. And you actually just saw me walk through that. So the first indication was the bubble on Libby's head, and it had the number 2 inside because I had 2 notifications waiting for me. And then once I tapped on that Libby menu, they appeared in the box up at the top of the screen, and I dismissed them out of the way by swiping left. That's what that menu badge is going to look like. And again, you're going to have to open the Libby app to see it because it's that in-app notification. The option directly above that, that blue notification line, this is going to be a push notification. And that will appear on your device's screen regardless of what app you have open. So you could be looking at Libby, but you could also be looking at Facebook or reading the news, or your device could be asleep somewhere else in the house. And the next time you open up your phone or tablet, it's going to appear on your device's screen just like a text message would. So this is a good option if you're not going to open Libby every day, so you're not missing any of those important events. So those are the 3 ways you can be notified. Right underneath that are all of the actions that you can be notified about. I want to talk today about Hold Ready. It's, in my opinion, the most important to be notified about. And the reason I say it's important to be notified when your hold is ready is because when it's your turn on a wait list, Libby's going to give you a 3-day period where that book is in limbo, and you are going to be the only person who can take action in that 3 days, more specifically 72 hours. So in the 3 days that book is in limbo, you can borrow the book, cancel the hold, or have the book delivered later. Deliver later is a feature that we have. So if you get busy and you don't have time to read the book yet, you can set a time period where you stay at the very top of the wait list, and then people will skip over you in line until that time period ends. and then you'll be the next person in line to get the book. So that 3-day limbo period, you can borrow, cancel, or deliver later. If you don't take one of those actions, then Libby's going to automatically deliver the title later one time as a courtesy, and then you'll get the book again. It'll be a 3-day period where you can take one of those 3 actions again. If you don't take one of those actions, the second 3-day limbo period, that's when Libby's going to cancel your hold. So you'll have to go and rejoin the wait list, which puts you at the bottom. So that's why I say it's important to be notified and make sure you're getting those notifications when your hold's ready, so you're not missing those 3-day limbo periods. All right, I'm going to come back to the top here, and I'm going to tap on back. Right underneath our notifications here, you'll see your libraries. So you can see here, I have 2 library cards attached to Libby. I can jump in between them to look at the different libraries collections. You can add as many library cards as you'd like to Libby. They can be from the same library if you have multiple family members who want to share a single device and don't want to fight over that loan limit. You have that option. You can also add additional library cards from different libraries if you have a valid library card and they use Overdrive services. This will vary from library to library, and each library has different criteria you have to meet to get a library card there. So we always say just reach out to the library that you are interested in. Last but not least, we have help and support. So if you come down here, you can see a button here that says get some help. I'm going to tap on that. And this is where you can find common solutions to frequently asked questions. Down here, the 4th option, you can see we have how do I sync Libby, copy to another device. Joe points this out at the beginning of the presentation. If you have multiple library cards on your Libby app and you don't want to copy every library card over to a new device, this gives you a simple, easy code to copy them all over. Up here at the top, you can type in questions or keywords if you're looking for an answer to something. One thing I don't talk about here in the presentation is returning titles, because I like to keep this presentation to the basic need to know features for you to get started with the Libby app. And because books return automatically on their due date, I don't prioritize it. But I like to use it as a way so that you can see how easy it is to find out more about Libby. So I'm just going to type in return here. I'm curious how to return a book early. I'm going to tap on search. And because I use the keyword, Libby's just going to guess what I'm asking, but she's usually right, returning books. I'm going to tap on that there. And here is where Libby tells me titles return automatically on their due date, so you don't have to be worried about late fees. But if you do want to return a book early, here are the steps to do so. So a really great way to find some answers that you're looking for. Now, if you can't find the answers you're looking for, don't worry. You can always come down to Ask Our Support Team. This is going to connect you via email to technical support specialists that work at Overdrive. They are Libby experts, so there's not a question that you can throw their way they're not going to know the answer to. And they can also troubleshoot any deeper issues as well. So if you're having trouble downloading a book or, Libby's acting funny, then they can go ahead and help you with the troubleshooting steps for that. And that is everything you need to know from start to finish to get started with the Libby app. I'm going to let Joe take back over here on the screen, and we're going to run into some next steps.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. That wraps up the Getting Started demo for this morning. We are about to transition into a few questions to kind of wrap up what we learned here, but I have a few important reminders I just wanted to shout out. Of course, we've had a lot of wonderful questions come through this morning. I wanted to remind you, you can ask Marissa and I anything at any point throughout this entire webinar this morning, and you can even ask those questions anonymously. We are about to head into that quiz period where we'll test your understanding of those basics we just showed off. and I will give a hop off warning before our deep dive. That'll be happening at 10:45. So at 10:45, we'll transition over into our tips and tricks session, or our deep dive session, where we look at some of our favorite features of the Libby app, everything from magazines to deeper features. We only recommend sticking around for this session if you are feeling confident and ready to learn more. So let the quiz we're about to roll into be your guide for that. If you are finding yourself struggling and you would benefit from the chance to step away and to review it later, remember you are getting that email tomorrow morning. That includes a link to our recorded webinar. So you can view that as early as tomorrow, or kind of at any point that you're comfortable within the next 30 days. I want to point out, if you jump off at any point, we do have a survey that will pop up in your browser. If you can take a minute to provide Marissa and I with some feedback, what you liked, what could be improved upon, we would greatly appreciate that. So just keep that in mind if you have to hop off early for any reason. So we're going to transition now into our mini quiz to wrap up the getting started portion of our morning, and you will receive a last call before we move on to the deep dive. All right, so the questions are going to appear in the center of your screen. If you are on a computer, just answer those. These questions are completely anonymous. No one will be called out because we don't know who answered what. I just like to point that out so everyone feels comfortable responding. If you are joining us on a mobile device today, you may have to tap the polls button in your Zoom meeting controls to see the question. All right, so for question number 1 here, we're going to start in the navigation bar. In the navigation bar, what do you tap to browse your library's digital collection? So this is when we don't know what we're looking for specifically, we just want that feeling of walking around the library. The magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock. Got a lot of answers coming in, that's great. Keep voting, everyone. There are 2 ways you can search, but only 1 way to browse. Make sure you're picking that browse option. Got about 60% of the vote in. I'm going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, great work, everyone. We've got a pretty decent split coming through here. This is one of mine and Marissa's kind of trick questions. As I mentioned toward the end there are 2 ways you can search for titles, but when you want to browse, you tap on the library card icon. So think of it as you grab your library card and you go to the library. This is where you can scroll through the different guides that your library has curated for you, or those different curated lists, recommendations like you see during history months, things like that. If you have something specific you're looking for, tap on the magnifying glass. This is my favorite way to search by title, author, or series name. So when I have no idea what I'm looking for, I go to the library card, but when I know exactly what I want, I use the magnifying glass. Great work, everyone. Okay, question 2. We're going to stick around in that navigation bar at the bottom of the screen. So what do you tap to find your loans and holds? The magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock? So we need to go to our shelf to find our loans and holds. What icon are we tapping on? All right, lots of great answers coming through. I'm going to close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Awesome work, everyone. This was a majority rules here. We had a majority of correct answers on this one. To get to our shelf, we come down to the navigation bar and tap on the stack of books icon. From here, we can see and tap into specifically our loans or our holds. And if we scroll down, Libby will break up the shelf page with different suggestions, whether it was something you had just opened or something you are currently reading? For those of you who answered clock, just kind of think how Marissa described it. Your shelf is anything current that you've borrowed, whereas the clock is your history of everything you've borrowed. But good guesses there, can be a little tricky sometimes. All right, for question number 3, we're going to dive into an ebook here and talk about the ways we can adjust our reading preferences. So what are 3 ways you can customize your ebook's appearance? Select all that apply. You can change the text scale or the size of the font. You can change the lighting or the background color of the book. You can change the book design or the font of the book, or you can change the language the book is written in. So 3 ways you can customize a book that you already have on loan to you in those appearance menus. All right, and I'm going to close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, nice job, everyone. This is kind of our second trick question. So first, let's make our way into that appearance menu. We'll tap in the center of the screen and then tap on the A icon and it'll pop up from the bottom. The 3 things we can change first, we can change text scale, so every book can be a large print book. Next, we can change the lighting or that background color. Bright is the default, dark is nice and easy on the eyes. And third, you can change the book design or the font that the book is presented in. Here we're showing off our Open Dyslexic font, but we have a lot of wonderful options available. And there is also a custom button if you want to adjust any of those settings in between. Now, if you chose language, great guess, that's kind of where the trick comes in. Your library offers titles in many other languages, but just like you have to pick if you want an ebook or an audiobook, you would also have to pick if you want a title in a different language. Marissa will show a way that you can set some language preferences in our tips and tricks session. Let's see if we can sneak in one more question here. This is a quick one. True or false, titles return automatically on their due date. All right, great work. I'm going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, everyone, awesome. The correct answer is true. Titles return automatically on their due date, so you never have to worry about fines or late fees. But if you'd like to return a title early, you would go to your shelf, then next to that title, tap Manage Loan, and then you would tap Return Early. From here, there will be a confirmation screen and you'd have to tap Return one more time to make sure that you're not accidentally returning something. Also in that Manage Loan menu is where you can renew titles. Titles can only be returned 3 days before they're due. So with that in mind, we have hit, we have hit 10:46, so we've got to get moving on to our deep dive session. So let me just hop over to this screen. So first and foremost, thank you everyone for joining us this morning for the getting started portion of our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. This is kind of that last call I promised. This is your chance to hop off if you're at your max or if you need to step away now. And just a reminder, you'll receive that email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to our recorded session. You can view that at any point for the next 30 days. So keep that in mind. If you are hopping off now, please take a moment and fill out the survey that appears in your browser. Marissa and I both appreciate it greatly. Marissa and appreciate together apparently was more than I could handle on a Monday. So with that said, we've given you all the chance to jump off. We are going to soldier on forward here. For anyone just joining us, hello and welcome. My name is Joe, and I'm a digital book specialist here at Overdrive. I'm here with my wonderful teammate, Marissa, and this morning we're going to take you through our Libby tips and tricks session, where we take a deeper dive into our favorite features of the library reading app, Libby. For those of you just joining us, a few housekeeping items. I'm going to go through these a little quickly for the people who have already heard them. We are recording our sessions this morning, and you will receive those in an email tomorrow morning from Zoom. That's the earliest you'll be able to access that recording, and you have 30 days to view or download and keep it permanently. With that in mind, we do recommend that you watch as we go through our demonstration here and wait to try the Libby app on your own after we wrap up this demo. You can ask Marissa and I questions at any point throughout the entire webinar using the Q&A feature in your Zoom meeting controls. Type in that question and keep that Q&A box open so you can see the answer that appears in the Answered tab. This is your only way to reach us, as we have chat and raise hand disabled so that all questions go to one shared space so everyone can see the questions asked and the answers we provide. Those will also be included in that recording you receive tomorrow. Wanted to also mention, Marissa will be using her device here. She'll connect her iPad, and when she does that, every once in a while, Zoom likes to cut off part of the screen. If you can't see that, I'll be chatting out some instructions. If you don't see that message come through from me, just pose it as a question. I'll provide those steps there as well. And last but not least, if you exit before we end the meeting, a survey will pop up in your browser. If you could fill that out, Marissa and I would both greatly appreciate it. So with all of that out of the way, let's look at the 4 tips and tricks we'll be covering today. First, we'll look at reading magazines, then filter and refining lists. Then we'll talk about tagging titles and wrap up with making notes and highlights. After Marissa makes her way through these 4 tips and tricks, we'll open up the floor to Q&A and we'll answer those questions in live demo format. So if there's anything you want to see kind of acted out by us on the screen, you can pose that question. I'll most likely mark it to be answered live in that time after. We'll have about 10 or 15 minutes toward the end. So it looks like Marissa's all connected here. So thank you all so much for joining us, and I'll hand it off to her.
All right. Thank you, Joe. So we're just going to dive right in. But first, if you cannot see the 5 icons down at the bottom of my screen, that's when you are going to follow those directions that Joe just chatted out. So you should see the magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby app icon, the shelf, and then the clock there. If you can't see those, just follow those instructions from Joe. If you can't find those instructions from Joe, then put it in the Q&A and he will get you where you need to go. So we're going to jump right into our tips and tricks. One of my favorites, magazines. We've been getting a lot of questions about magazines today. So I'm going to talk about how you can read magazines in the Libby app. So you can see I'm starting here on my shelf. This is where all those borrowed materials are. I already have a magazine downloaded to Libby today because they can take a minute to download. I like to have it fresh and ready to go. So here's my magazine here. I'm going to go ahead and open it in Libby. Oh, I stopped my screen share here. 1 second. Sometimes I hit the wrong button despite 14 months of using Zoom exclusively. Occasionally I mess that up. Give me 1 second here. There we go. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so I am going to tap open in Libby. One thing you're going to hear me say in the magazine a lot right now is you're going to find what works best for you. And that's because we have 4 different ways that you can navigate throughout a magazine in Libby. And then there's 2 different ways that you can read a magazine article. And I'm going to cover all of those because as Joe and I are out on the road and helping people get used to the Libby app, we've seen every single option be something that someone likes. So I'm going to show you all of the options and then you can decide what works best for you. So you can see when we first open a magazine, up in the top and the bottom of the screens, we have some menus. This menu in the bottom has two different ways that you can navigate throughout. So the first is if you have excellent vision. You can see the little icons here that show the thumbnails for each page. I have seen people use this to navigate throughout by selecting the thumbnail that they want to jump to, and that is certainly an option for you as well. The other way that you can navigate within this menu is using this bar here. If you stayed from getting started, you might remember that this bar also showed up in ebooks and audiobooks as well. And it's always broken up into 3 sections like this. If you tap the middle section, often it says the chapter name or the article name if you're in a magazine. This is going to be Libby's chapter list. So the table of contents there, you can scroll through here and choose an article if you would like to jump to a specific article using Libby's table of contents. So this will just give you the title of the article. I'm going to go ahead and tap on hide. And I'm going to mute for a second so I can clear my throat. All right, I apologize. I don't like doing that right in your ear. So those are 2 of the ways you can navigate throughout the magazine. I'm now going to drop these menus out of the way by tapping in the center of the screen. And then you can page forward throughout the magazine by tapping or swiping on the right side. So this is the 3rd way you can navigate. This is my mom's favorite way. She likes to see every single page in the magazine. She doesn't care if it's an ad. She wants to go from start to finish all the way through and make her way through the magazine. So that's how she would do it, just tapping on the right side of the screen. Now, I like specific articles. When I download a magazine, I probably only read 3 or 4 articles and then I return it. So what I like to do is this 4th option here. I like to swipe until I see the masthead. That is a magazine's way of saying table of contents. So this is the masthead here. And here, these are all links. So in addition to the article name, you also get a little blurb about what that article is about. And you can tap on any of these links here to navigate to that specific article. So that's the 4th and final way that you can navigate throughout a magazine. Again, you're going to find what works for you. All of those options are available. Now let's talk about the 2 different ways that you can read a magazine. So the first, I'm going to tap on the center of the screen. That's going to make those menus reappear. And then if you go up to the top right-hand corner, you can see the zoom button. This zoom button, if you tap on it, is going to require you to pinch your fingers in and out on the screen. So let's say I want to read this blurb about blood sugar. I'm just going to pinch my fingers out, make it larger. And then when I'm done reading that, I'm going to pinch my fingers back in and go back out to the full page. So that is an option for you. The second way you can read a magazine is a little simpler. I'm going to tap on the center of the screen again. That's going to make those menus drop out of the way. And then at the bottom of the screen, you can see the read the article button. If you tap on this, this is going to give you a nice clean menu where your reading settings from your ebook experience are going to carry on over. So if you came from getting started, you'll remember we customized those reading settings so we could have a larger font or a darker background. That will carry over into this magazine experience here. And then we can begin scrolling through this article. All of the text is the same size. We're not having to pinch our fingers in and out. And it's a nice, clean menu to read and enjoy that article. So that is the second way that you can read a magazine article. So I know I say it a lot. You're going to find what works best for you. I like to show you all of the options available so that you can have the experience that you want to have. I'm going to go ahead and drop this article out of the way now. Let's pretend I finished reading it. I'm going to tap just above the menu there. That's going to drop it out of the way. And let's wrap up this magazine tip by leaving the magazine. So I'm just going to tap in the center of the screen and then back up in the left-hand corner. That's going to take us back to our shelf here. So I'm going to go over to a different tab down in the navigation bar for tip number 2. So I'm going to come down to that navigation bar and tap on my library card here. Our second tip is going to be talking about how you can filter and refine lists so that you can find the books that you like faster. So I know we all wish we had all day to just read about books and pick out books and make wish lists and all of that, but let's pretend we're in a hurry now. So the first way you can filter and refine your lists is by setting a preference. And a preference is going to apply to all lists in the Libby app, and it's going to stick and stay until you change it again. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I'm going to scroll down on the library card tab just below the catalog guides. If you remember, these catalog guides, they change from library to library. Yours aren't going to look exactly like mine. In fact, you have a really awesome catalog guide for magazines. So one of these lines will say magazine instead. That's how you can find the entire collection of magazines. But one that everyone is going to have regardless is preferences. You'll see it doesn't say guide next to it. Instead, it's a little plus sign. This is an app-wide filter. So when you tap on preferences, you can set an app-wide filter. One filter I always like to set on my device as an example is language preference. So despite my French teacher's best effort in high school, I can only read well enough in English to only want English titles to show up in my searches. Otherwise, I'm going to borrow them and not be able to read them. So I come over to language here and tap on any, select English or your language of choice as well. I'm going to select English here. And now, once I apply this preference, anytime I search or browse for a book, Libby is going to filter out any of the titles that are in languages other than English. So a really good example of why you might set a preference. Two other ones I like to talk about are audience. Maybe you have a child at home that has a device that you only want them to see age-appropriate content. You can set a juvenile filter so they're not getting any of those young adult or adult books. Format is also a popular one. Joe and I see this a lot. Some people, they don't like both ebooks and audiobooks. They just want to listen to audiobooks or just read ebooks. This is an option for you as well. If you like a particular format, you can go ahead and set a format preference for that specific format. And that way you're not having to filter through all those other formats during your searches. I'm just going to stick with English for now and tap on Apply Preference. You can see that refreshes the page, but I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so that you can see now instead of that plus sign, I have a 1. That's Libby's way of saying, hey, you have one filter that is applying to all your lists. So it's just a way for you to keep that in mind. All right, so now that I've set an app-wide filter, let's start talking about filtering and refining our searches. So for this tip, I like to give a little prompt here. So let's pretend my mom and I are about to go on a road trip tomorrow, maybe Dollywood. I've always wanted to go to Dollywood. So we are going on a road trip. We're going to need an audio book, right? We can't legally read and drive yet. Tesla hasn't gotten there quite yet. So audiobooks is what we're going to look for. I want that book to be available now because I don't want to wait on a waiting list. Our road trip's tomorrow, so I need it to be available now. I want it to be a new release. So none of the older books. I want a new book that just came out recently. And then I'm going to let my mom choose the genre. She likes historical fiction mystery titles. So those are the 4 criteria I'm going to use today to filter and refine my search. available audiobook, that's a new release, and a mystery historical fiction. So on the library card tab, remember we tapped on that library card where we browse the entire collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. I'm going to start this browsing up in the top where these filters are. I always like to start my searches here. It's a nice, easy way. And one of our criteria was available now. So let's go ahead and tap on that filter to begin looking for a book. Now, up at the top, you can see I'm looking at available titles in English. Remember, I set that preference and it's an app-wide preference that stays. So I'm only looking at English titles and it's all available. Down here, you can see we're looking at 38,000 books, 21,000 audiobooks, and 2,000 magazines. I could be here all day looking for the book. Let's go ahead and filter out the books and magazines by tapping on audiobooks here. That's going to make it so only audiobooks are now showing up in this search. So really quickly, we already got two of our criteria out of the way. We're now looking at available audiobooks. So now I'm going to come over to Refine on the right-hand side of the screen. And I'm going to tap there. One thing I want to point out is you might notice these are all the same categories that we saw under preferences. And you might be wondering, what's the difference? Well, preferences are sticky and stay until you change them again. Remember, I set that preference and now I'm searching for a book and it's still showing me just English titles. Refining is temporary and for the search that you're making right at that moment. So you can set some refining filters and the next time you search for a book, it's going to revert back to showing you everything. So preferences, sticky and stay, refining, temporary for the search we're making at that moment. Let's go ahead and choose our subject here. I'm going to tap on subject and then select mystery. You can see this number continues to drop. So now we're down to 2,800. I'm going to come back to refine. We're going to select a second subject. So I'm going to come down to subject. And now I'm going to select historical fiction. That number has now dropped to 205. I like to show this off because I like to let you know that you can find those niche subjects. You're not stuck with just looking at mystery titles or just historical fiction titles. You can continue to add additional subjects so you can find those niche subjects. I have been able to apply 4 subjects before Libby's telling me I'm too specific and I want something that doesn't exist. So you can add about 4. I'm going to go ahead and select refine one more time. We have one more criteria to meet, and that is a new release. So I'm going to come down to sort by. Depending on your device, you might have to scroll down a little bit in this menu to see the sort by option. And instead of looking by popularity, I'm going to choose release date. That's going to make it so that the newest titles are showing at the top of this list. And as we work our way down the list, they will get older. So very simple tip here, filtering and refining lists so that you can find the books you like faster. We started out with 60,000 plus titles and I've narrowed this list down to 205. So instead of spending all day looking for it, I'll probably only spend a couple of hours. All right, so I'm actually going to stay on the screen here for our third tip. And that is tagging titles. It's one of my favorite tips. It's the feature I probably use most in Libby. And tagging titles is great for organizing books in Libby. This is one of the main differences between Overdrive and the Libby app. So Overdrive gives you a wish list and a history list, but you're limited to those 2 lists. Whereas Libby has a tagging system and it's really robust. You can make as many tags as you'd like and name them whatever you'd like as well. So let's talk about tags. I'm going to stay here in this list, like I said, and I'm going to scroll down. Let's pretend we're looking for that book here. Under the borrow and play or read sample button, you'll see the word tag. This is how you're going to be able to tag titles. I'm just going to tap on tag here, and that brings up our tagging menu. So when you want to tag a book, after you tap on tag, you can create a new tag or add that book to an existing tag that you have. Now, regular tags do not have any special abilities. They're just tags that you create to categorize books. You can see here I have a wish list, so I created a to be read tag. And then I also have a cooking tag as well to keep track of some cookbooks that have recipes that I enjoy in them. So again, these don't have any special abilities. I just use them to categorize things. Underneath that, you'll see smart tags. These do have special abilities. This first smart tag, everyone's going to have. It is a borrowed smart tag, and it's a little red receipt, just like if you were to go up to the circulation desk and check out and they hand you a receipt. This is your little digital receipt there for borrowing a book. So this smart tag will automatically apply to any books that you borrow in Libby, and a really nice way to keep track of those past books that you've borrowed. The magazine smart tag, directly underneath that, is a notify me smart tag. And this is going to be specific to magazines. So if you borrow a magazine, the very first time, Libby's going to ask you if you want to create this tag. You can name it whatever you want. You can see I just named mine magazines for ease. And then once you add magazines to that notify me tag, Libby's going to alert you every time a new issue of that magazine comes into the library. That way you're not going to have to keep going back and searching for the magazine again to see if there's new issues. So again, you'll be prompted to create that the first time you borrow a magazine. And then anytime you borrow a magazine after, Libby's going to ask you if you want to add it to that tag. So special abilities for smart tags, regular tags are just for categorization. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and tap on new tag. Let's create a tag here for this book in the Garden of Spite. Now, it's really simple. You can name it whatever you'd like. Let's pretend I am not in the mood for a mystery title right now, but when I am in the mood for a mystery title, I want to find this book nice and easy. So I'm just going to create a mystery tag here and then tap on done. And you can see that tag has now applied right next to the book. And this is a really nice thing to know, because when we're searching for a book, right, we're still kind of in that search for my mom and I's audiobook. As I scroll through this list, I can see that I've added this book in the past to my wish list. So I would probably go ahead and borrow The War Widow right away instead of wasting any more time searching for a book. As I scroll down the list, I can also see this borrowed smart tag. So I know that I've read The Devil in the Dark Water in the past. Even if it was a couple years ago, I can see, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and skip over that. I've read it before and continue on my way. So those tags showing up right next to the jacket cover in the search is quite nice. Now, I also want to show you where you can find those tags in the list form. So right now we're searching for that book. We're browsing the book's collection of available audiobooks. I'm going to, in the navigation bar, tap on the bookshelf. Remember, that's the stack of books. That is where all of our loans and holds are. Up at the top, next to those filters, you can see your tags. So I'm going to tap on more. This is going to give us a full list of our tags. Here's my to be read list, my cooking list, that mystery tag I just created. Let's go ahead and tap on to be read. We'll look at my wish list here. Here is what your tag list is going to look like. One thing I like to point out here, this is a little mini tip inside a bigger tip, is this icon. Anytime you see this library card icon, it might look like a calendar instead if the book is on hold. You can tap on that icon and borrow or place the hold straight away from this screen here instead of having to go and view the title details. But more importantly, down below, if you have multiple library cards attached to Libby, then you can see how many copies are available at each of your libraries. So maybe one has a long wait list. You can pop in here and see if there's a shorter wait list available at a different library that you belong to. So I always like to show that off here during this tip. I'm going to go ahead and drop that menu out of the way by tapping above. The last thing I want to show you here in our tagging tip is how you can export your tags out in an email or a text message, or you can also print them out. So up at the top of your tag list, you'll see the actions button. I'm going to tap on actions here. This is where you can rename or delete your tag. You can also export your tag. So I'm going to tap on export. There are 3 options available, just like magazines. You'll figure out what works best for you. We've seen it all. I personally like table, so I'm going to go ahead and tap on table here. Once you get to your data export page, this is where you're going to have the ability to share this out. So if you come up to the right-hand corner, you can see the share icon. This is a universal icon, not specific to Libby. It's every app has this. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that icon here. And you can see I can now send this in a text message or an email. I can also scroll down just a tiny bit here and print this list out if I wanted to take it to the physical library and try to find a physical copy of the book instead. So nice options for you to export this out of the Libby app if you would like. I'm going to go ahead and tap outside of this menu to drop that out of the way, and then tap on done. That wraps up our tip about tagging. Again, one of my favorite tips. I love tags. I probably have 80 lists on my Libby app. I'm a little bit of a psycho when it comes to tags, honestly. Let's move on to our last tip of the day. This is going to be, what is it going to be, Joe? It's at the tip of my brain, making notes and highlights. There we go.
Almost there, sorry.
Mondays. So we're going to be talking about making notes and highlights. Another one of my favorite tips. So making notes and highlights, really great for anyone who's in book clubs, anyone going to school, reading for school. Joe and I just like to annotate for fun. What you're going to do is open up any of your ebooks. You can also annotate in audiobooks. If you want to see that, put that in the Q&A. We can add that into our demo questions at the end. I'm going to show you ebooks here for this tip. So let's go ahead and page forward here. I'm going to get to a big chunk of text. There we go. So when you come across a passage that you would like to highlight and reference later on, what you're going to do is start at the beginning of that passage. I'm going to put my mouse just slightly to the left here so that you can see what happens when I tap and press my finger on the word she. So I'm taking my finger, as soon as my finger hits the screen, I'm leaving it on the screen. If you do a fast tap, it's going to turn the page. So make sure as soon as your finger makes contact, it's staying on the screen, and then you're dragging it across the screen to highlight the full passage. Once you lift your finger off the screen, you're going to find this menu down here where you can highlight. Let's go ahead and select a color here to stay organized. Once you select your color, all you have to do is tap on the highlight, and that is going to drop down a menu where you can make a note. Now, for the demonstration, I'm just going to say this is a note, but know that I've made full paragraphs here for my book club, so you're not limited to just one sentence. You can say quite a bit here. And then I'm going to go ahead and tap on save. So now that note has saved to the highlight. Let's page forward here. And let's say we want to reference that note back. So I'm going to tap on the center of the screen. That's going to make our menus appear again. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you can see the multiple bookmark icon here. This is going to be where all of our notes and highlights are. So I'm going to tap on that icon. Here is the note or the highlight that I just made and my note as well. All you have to do is tap on that highlight and you will be taken back to that page. And then to see the note, you just have to tap on the highlight and your note will drop down. Now, we know that sometimes you're going to make notes and highlights and the title is going to return to the library. Maybe it's on a wait list, but you still want to access those notes and highlights. You can still do that. So let's go ahead and walk through those steps here. I'm going to tap on done here, drop that menu out of the way, and we're going to leave the ebook. So I'm going to tap on the center of the screen. Those menus pop up. And I'm going to tap on back up in that left-hand corner. Now, when you want to find the notes and highlights that you've made in a book that you've borrowed in the past, there's a few different ways you can get there. You want to access the details page. You can go to the magnifying glass and type in the book title and find the book that way. You could also go to your activity timeline, that clock icon down in the navigation bar, and try to find it in your timeline there. The easiest way that I have found is using that borrowed smart tag. Remember, it automatically applies to any books that we've borrowed in the past. I'm going to tap on that smart tag there, and here is my list of borrowed books. And I'm looking for the guest list. Here it is. I'm going to go ahead and tap on the jacket cover here. So when you tap on the jacket cover anywhere in the app, it's going to take you to the details page. On your details page, you'll have a reading journey if you've borrowed that book in the past. So the reading journey starts as soon as you borrow a book, and then it captures every action that you take with that book. I'm going to go ahead and tap on reading journey. Up here at the top, you'll recognize this button, that actions button. That's what we tap to export our tags. So if you tap on actions, you can also export your notes and highlights for printing or sending out in the email or text message. So that is one option for you. I'm going to tap outside of that menu there to drop it out of the way. If you don't want to export it out of the app, but you still want to access those notes and highlights, we're still on that reading journey. I'm just going to scroll down until I see the timeline for the title. And then here you'll see any highlights that you've made, and you can tap on each individual highlight to see the highlight as well as the note that you made. So a couple different options there for finding those notes and highlights, even after the book has returned to the library. And that wraps up our fourth and final tip for today, making annotations. I'm going to let Joe take back over and get into any of those questions that we've been asking. So, Joe.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. And thank you all for joining us this morning. That wraps up the tips and tricks demo, and we're going to kind of roll in now to answer any questions you might have and show off those steps live on screen. I'm going to go through some of the questions we've answered in Q&A and kind of pull up some of those, but please feel free to take the time now to type in those questions and we'll show off those answers for you. If you are hopping off as we go through this, just a reminder, when that survey pops up in your browser, take a moment to fill that out for us. We do greatly appreciate it. We'll take about like 5 minutes here while I go through some of these questions. If no questions come through, we'll end a little early, but Marissa and I are here for you, and we won't end the meeting until all open questions are closed. So the first one that comes to mind that I just kind of wanted to point out for everyone, we had a great question about reading magazines on a Kindle. So the first thing I want to point out is, as we've kind of shown, the Kindle feature is a great way to send titles to your Kindle. The Libby app is not yet available on Kindle Fire devices. While we're always working on that, certain limitations set by Amazon. So you can use Libby to send ebook titles only to your Kindle using those steps that Marissa mentioned in our Getting Started session. So this is specific to ebooks and does not allow for audiobooks or magazines. And I'm only pausing there because I'm seeing that we've got questions coming through. The first one here, I can't get Libby app on my computer. Correct. The Libby app can only be downloaded on Apple devices like iOS and like iPhones and iPads, or Android devices like smartphones and tablets. If you want to use Libby on your computer, you can do that, but you go to your internet browser and go to libbyapp.com. So whether you use Firefox or Google Chrome, something like that, go to libbyapp.com. It will look the same and even have the same sign-in steps and all of that like we showed off in the app. You just don't have the ability to download titles for offline usage because since you're in the internet browser, you kind of have to be connected all the time. But she'll still sync across devices. So if you're using libbyapp.com, maybe at work, that's how you're listening to audiobooks instead of draining your phone battery. And then you get into the car to connect to your Bluetooth for the drive home. Libby will update the position you were in from where you were working. So if you listened all day, you made it through 8 hours of an audiobook. When you connect to your phone, Libby will say, oh, this is where you're supposed to be, and you can start playing from there. We have another great question. What is the time frame to renew a book? Just like when you want to borrow a title on hold, you have 3 days or 72 hours. That's kind of the magic number within Libby. That is the earliest you can renew a title. So you'll go to your shelf and then tap on Manage Loan next to the title. We have one right here we can actually do live with you. And then you'll tap on Renew Loan. Now, if it's too early for you to renew it, there will be a little hourglass symbol there and it will be grayed out. Libby will say you can do this as soon as X amount of days, and it'll renew on screen. Now, if someone is waiting for this title, you won't be able to renew the title. You will be prompted to join the wait list. And here's that example of the grayed out Renew Loan and magnifying glass. And if you tap on it, a little dialog box should appear. There we go, it takes us into the next screen. It's too early to renew. You'll be able to renew it in 11 days. All right, question from our friendly neighborhood librarian, Diane. When the Overdrive app ceases to be available in the Apple Store or Google Play Store, will it still be available in the Kindle App Store since Libby is not compatible with Fire? That is a great question, Diane. You got me stumped, but let me pull this up. It'll take 2 seconds. Let's see. So our kind of main stream here is that the Overdrive app will be removed from the app stores as the first run. So anyone in June of 2021. So anyone who still has the Overdrive app downloaded on their device will still be able to use the app. The app will not cease to exist at that point. That is further down the line. So if you already have it downloaded, it will be there, and it is only being removed from the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. The Kindle Fire Store is a different entity. But we're hoping by then that that will help us get Libby into the Kindle Fire Store. Susan asks, can I access a book not in my library system? Kind of a yes and no answer to that. You can only access titles that you have the ability to access. If you have a library card for multiple systems, like if Marissa opens up her Libby menu here, you'll see she has 2 different library cards for our 2 demo libraries. So if her top one, My Digital Library, doesn't have it, she could hop into the Digital Bookmobile library and check there. So the only way to access titles not in your system is to have a card available for another system. Now, if you're thinking something like interlibrary loans, kind of like larger scale, your digital collection is a pretty large one for Delaware County. So some of the places you might typically borrow from are actually already in that digital collection. So you're not, you think of it a little differently, than you're not limited to your physical branch. You kind of have access to all of the libraries that fall in Delaware County in that one shared collection. And of course, we always recommend, if you're interested in adding other libraries, all libraries have different policies, so reach out and see if they are able to give you a card or not. Sometimes it's residency in an area, sometimes it's just residency within the state itself. When tagging magazines, the difference between tagging a magazine title versus specific issue, it gets confusing. Okay, so if you are tagging a specific issue, that would most likely not be a smart tag. That's just going to be, I want to refer back to this issue of the magazine. If there's a recipe in here, I know I want to make. It's a kind of great way to do it. But if you're using that smart tag that Marissa mentioned to be alerted when the newest issue is available, that's going to be done at that higher level when you check out a magazine. So that's going to be applied, and you'll be notified, just like a hold becoming available, that new issue is available. So you're only tagging an issue when there's one thing you want to look back into it, just like you'd tag one specific book. But that smart tag you only need to make one time. So if you want new issues of the New Yorker every time it comes out, the first time you borrow the New Yorker, Libby's going to ask you, would you like to be notified when new issues of this magazine become available? If you say, if you want that, you tap on the name of your Notify Me tag. You'll be prompted every time a new one comes out. But if you want to just tag a single issue, like say the May 2021 issue, you would do that from the title details page or your shelf, so you can refer back to it later. And Marissa, I didn't know if you wanted to speak on that any differently, or if you were.
Yeah, I think you did good there. I would just say, if you, let's just go ahead actually and do it. It'll be easier to see. All right, so if you wanted to make a tag specific for issues, I would go ahead and tap on tag, create a new tag. Let's call this one issues. And then tap on done. So I'm not adding any smarts to it. It's just going to be a tag that shows specific issues I'm interested in. Now, if I tap on borrow here for the New Yorker and tap on borrow again, I might have this one. Okay, I didn't. Now you'll see what I like to be notified of new issues of this magazine. If I do want to be notified, that's when I'm going to tap on the magazine tag. If I don't want to be notified of new issues, that's when I'm going to tap on not now. So this is adding it to the smart tag where I am going to be alerted, whereas the tag that I created that just said issues, that's not going to alert me. So that, just to walk through and show you the difference, makes it a little easier.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I figured that would be a little one of those helpful things to just kind of see live. Our last question that's come through here is, can I recommend a title to buy? No, there is not a button specifically in Libby to recommend a title for purchase. If your library does not have it, you can do that in your library's digital collection website. But there is not currently a button specifically within Libby. There have been requests for that in the past, so it's always on the map somewhere. But if you would like to request this feature be added, that you can recommend titles to your library, you can do that directly from the Libby app. So we'll tap on the Libby menu, go down to Get Some Help under Help and Support. And then if we scroll down a little bit, here's an idea for the future. We can tap on Suggestion Box. And you could type in here, I'd like to be able to recommend titles to my library or anything like that. and submit it directly. That will go straight to our Libby app developers. And we encourage you that if this is something you want, you know, if everyone wanted this, I recommend all of you to submit that, because the more they hear it from people, the higher up in priority it goes. So you can always submit feedback about the Libby app directly within the app itself. So another feature I love to point out. You explained how new magazine notification works. What is the new tag for? So if you're referring to the new tag Marissa created, the one that was just called issues, that was just if she wanted to organize and split out specific issues. So if something really stuck out to you and you wanted to be able to jump back into it at any point, great. But that button that says new tag, that's just whenever you want to add a tag to your list. So she's got, you can see on her screen, to be read, cooking, mystery, and issues. If you now want to create a tag that, one thing we learned on the road is we've seen a lot of grandparents who like to create tag lists for when their grandchildren come over. So if they see a book that they think their grandkid might be interested in, tends to be their name. There is an auto tag called new. Marissa, can you tap on tag again for me? Excuse me. So we've got smart tags, regular tags, and recently, I mean, when we tap on new tags, sometimes it gives you suggestions of what you could name them. But I am not seeing that on our end.
Yeah, that's not a tag that comes with the Libby app. If you're seeing that, it might be because you created a tag that said that you named new tag and added smarts to it, but that will, anytime you tap on new tag, that's creating a new tag. So you'll be prompted to name it or add smarts to it if you'd like, but that is not an auto tag itself.
So, well, thank you everyone for your questions and for your participation today. I know we're a few minutes over, but if you're typing a question, please feel free to continue typing it. We're just going to wrap up with a few final notes here before we end. If any other questions come through, we will answer them. But thank you all so much for joining us today and for sticking around for our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. You'll receive an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to the recording of this entire presentation. You can view that as early as tomorrow around this time, and you have up to 30 days to view that before the recording expires. If you'd like to keep that recording permanently, there is a button in the upper right-hand corner after you click through to the link that says download. If you choose download, gives you the option to keep that video permanently so you can reference it as many times as you need. We also encourage and welcome you to share that video with family and friends, anyone who you think would benefit from meeting Libby. Before I wrap up, we have a couple other questions that have come through. Newspapers are not available in Libby, just magazines, at least at the moment. And then it shows as a smart tag. Unfortunately, since we can't see your screen, don't know necessarily exactly what the situation is. So I would request that you reach out to our tech support team in the Libby menu by going to get some help, and then type in tags. And if you don't, when you don't see that answer, that says, you know, anything about tags that might help guide you through those support articles, just reach out and tap Ask Our Support Team, send an email through about what you're seeing on your screen, and those Libby experts can kind of request some screenshots, get some very specific answers together for you. All right, well, thank you everyone. This wraps up our session here. When I tap end meeting, it will close everyone out for the morning. We appreciate you being here. A survey will pop up in your browser. If you could fill that out for us, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you all so much, and happy reading.